The NFL has suspended Giants kicker Josh Brown for a game, as you know, and they are looking for a kicker to fill the void Week 1 against the Cowboys when Josh Brown serves his suspension for violating the personal conduct policy. This, according to documents obtained by ESPN, Josh Brown was arrested in May 2015 on a charge of assault in the fourth-degree domestic violence against his wife, Molly. She said police were called to their residences more than 10 times and that he sent a letter in April 2014 to friends admitting abusive behavior and lying to make her look bad. The NFL released a statement on how they arrived on their one-game punishment for Brown. Our investigators became aware that his wife had filed a statement with the county court alleging previous altercations between the spouses. However, despite multiple attempts to speak with her about this incident, in her previous statement, she declined to speak with us. The NFL, therefore, made a decision based on the findings around this one incident. As proved to us by the district attorney, Mr. Brown and the NFLPA appealed this discipline, but the decision was upheld by a hearing officer. Stephen A., one-game suspension. What do you think of the NFL's decision here on Josh Brown?
I think the NFL has some explaining to do. And I'm going to go here. I'm not accusing the NFL of anything. I respect the NFL, just like I respect the NFLPA. I certainly have respect for Commissioner Roger Goodell. But I'm not going to lie to you. When I read this, I know for a fact that there are many within the black community that are asking the question, if Josh Brown were black, would it have been one game? Let's look at this. We're talking about an incident stemming, it's a ruling state emanating from a May 2015 incident. His appeal had already been denied, so he's out for Week 1. Giants are working out kickers today. We hear about this. Listen to this. Molly described in her statement the history of physical violence against her from her husband, Joshua. Molly stated that Joshua had been physically violent to her on more than 20 different instances over the past several years. Now, 20 different incidences, cops coming to the homes on numerous occasions, according to the reports that I've read. The Giants are aware of this. The NFL was aware of this. Now, they want to make the argument that she wasn't necessarily cooperative with them in terms of making herself available. Last time I checked, that's exactly why Miss Anna Isaacson was elevated to Vice President of Social Responsibility for the NFL. Lisa Friel, former head of the Sex Crimes Prosecution Unit in the New York County District Attorney's Office, is also involved in the NFL's enforcing the NFL's domestic violence policy or making or giving advice as to what ruling should come down. Another person by the name of Jane Randall, she's No More. She's the founder of co-founder of No More, and Rita Smith, the former executive director of the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. So I understand that you have women involved that obviously went to Roger Goodell or spoke to the league office, no doubt probably advised as to what ruling should come down here. But you have a policy in place, a baseline suspension of 6 games without pay for violations involving assault, battery, domestic violence, dating violence, child abuse, other forms of family violence, or sexual assault, with consideration given to possible mitigating or aggravating circumstances. So that means you can make it more or you can make it less. I totally understand if it's not 6 games because she wasn't cooperating. But why all the way down to 1 game? That's my problem with all of this. How do you go from 6, potentially, to just 1?
Can I mention one thing? Sorry to interrupt you. Not being cooperative, though, and the police also said this, that's indicative of behavior of a victim.
That's right. Well, this is what we've all been taught.
Yeah.
We've learned a lot of this over the last couple of years. Roger Goodell certainly learned it. The league office certainly learned this. And 1 game, and I'm just going to say it. Answer to this question. I am asking the question that if this were a black man, would it have been just 1 game? Because I got news for you. There's a whole bunch of people in the black community. I can't speak for everybody, but there's a whole bunch of people in the black community that are sitting here saying today, this is the epitome of white privilege, because there's no way in hell a black man could be involved in 20 different incidences and you only get a 1-game suspension in today's culture, today's climate, it would not have happened.
Post Ray Rice, because Ray Rice only got
That's why I
2
said
games.
today. That's right.
The NFL, in explaining, said they limited it to this incident. And this incident, there were pictures of her wrist that were difficult to tell and he apparently restrained her by the wrist, and it was difficult to see marks, but the police thought there was enough there to do something. She was not cooperative. Of course, if they were arguing over finances, which apparently is what was going on, it hurts their future financial security if he can't make a living in the NFL. And if she cooperates, maybe it inhibits his. I mean, like, there are lots of.
No, that
factors.
might not have been why she didn't cooperate, though. She could have been scared for her life.
For sure, that could also be it. But there are a variety of reasons why
Yeah.
she may not have cooperated. But limiting the scope of this just to this incident, they come up with 1 game because essentially the metaphor to me is the NFL is saying we're going to do more than the courts. We're not going to just lower the standard of evidence. We're going to say we don't need absolute evidence, incontrovertible evidence that there's a fire. If we see smoke, we're taking out our fire extinguisher. And the question is, how many shots of the fire extinguisher do we need to put out the fire? Because the bottom line is it affects their business. And they don't want to burn the house down. And in this case, I agree with you, given the history, it doesn't seem like enough. But given the fact that she's not cooperating, there's no conviction here, etc., the NFL thought 1 shot of the fire extinguisher should be enough to put out this level of smoke, but they may have been mistaken.
This is a pattern of behavior.
Well, the only thing
they may have been mistaken because now we're all talking about was it enough, which indicates maybe they needed a few more shots.
The only thing I'm going to say before I go to coach is this. When Roger Goodell handed down that 2-game suspension, it was before the uproar. It was before the video came out, and it was before he had this committee. So to know the residue and the stench of Ray Rice and Greg Hardy to still come down with 1 game in the aftermath of all of that is where my problem lies.
I think we all have a problem with it. It's not just an NFL problem when you're talking about domestic violence.
Sure.
And by the way, it doesn't see color. Okay, we got a problem in our society with it. Now, I'm glad the NFL obviously, they have a set of rules now that they can live by. But I think we were all puzzled in the fact that it was 1 game. I know this personally as a coach. This is where you as a coach, it's not so much the coach anymore. It's the husband and the father. That's how I look at this through my eyes when it comes to players, if I'm associated with those players on my football team. And once I catch wind of it, we're going to have a conversation. I mean, this guy seems to be a repeat offender or in the vicinity of it, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. And that, to me, is a warning. And I'm trying to figure out, well, wait a minute now, okay? And I'm going to have this conversation with the player. And it's never going to be good if I feel that, you know what? Well, what he's saying to me, it doesn't add up.
Well, forgive me for bringing this up.
Yes, sir.
But reporting on the NFL back, years ago, there was a coach for the Kansas City Chiefs by the name of Herm Edwards. Yeah. There was a former player that got himself involved in an incident in a club. I don't recall there being any history, but nevertheless, it was an incident where accusations and allegations were made that he put his hands on her and come to find out he just threw a drink in her face or whatever the case may be. This coach right here deactivated that player for 4 games. We are talking about a guy that his wife is on the record saying he has physically harmed her at least 20 times. And by the way, let me not put, where are you? You're Jerry Reese. You're Bob McAdoo. What the hell is going on where you could sit up there and look at a guy on your team that has been associated. Now, the Maras, the Tisches, this is first-class people.
No doubt.
First-class organization. Jerry Reese is a first-class individual. He's a good man. How in God's name is this man on your team getting suspended for just 1 game where he's been associated when his wife is on record talking about 20 different instances?
And Somali, to your point about one of the reasons there's a lack of cooperation at times is the victim is scared.
The police also said in this specific case that this was...
That she showed behavior
of a victim.
That was, I mean, now the police they're not infallible, but they see enough of it to have some expertise to understand when they see behavior that indicates this is an ongoing pattern. And that's what they saw in this case reportedly.
Listen, I'm a diehard Giants fan. You all know this. Turn term. I ask you about them every time I see you. I want them to win a Super Bowl every single year. Josh Brown does not need to be kicking for this team. Josh Brown needs to get help, and that's the bottom line. When we come back to the association we go. Coach K leads Team USA to their third Olympic gold medal. Are the fellows okay with Mike